Jujutsu Kaisen is full of untapped potential. Almost no characters reach their true full potential, but some definitely get closer than others, by a lot. So today I wanted to talk about the 9 characters that are the furthest from their potential peaks. And trust me, some of these were unexpected even to me. Let's start with potential man himself, Megumi. Megumi is probably the single most hyped up character to not meet their full potential. In fact, not only did he fall short of his potential, he bombed it. This student was said to have the potential to equal Gojo by Gojo, and even Sukuna was constantly impressed by his actions throughout the show. That's the 2 strongest characters in the series praising the guy, and he never came close to the potential they saw in him. And I think there is a very interesting reason for this. In every case, people saw the potential of the 10 Shadows technique, not the potential of Megumi himself. That's not to be rude to Megumi. He's obviously a great sorcerer with extensive knowledge on Jujutsu and a good amount of training and experience as well. But when comparing him to Gojo at the same age, it does not feel like they are remotely on the same level. But I think it kind of makes sense. When you're looking at a technique as broken as the 10 Shadows technique, of course that's what you're going to be seeing more of rather than the pilot of the technique themselves. The 10 Shadows technique is a top 5 most broken technique in Jujutsu Kaisen, right up there with the Limitless technique, Copy, and Idle Transfiguration. The most obvious aspect of the technique that is broken is Mahoraga, the strongest Shikigami in the technique that can adapt to any and all phenomena and that keeps adapting even after it figures out a technique. This is extremely broken on its own, and it's pretty much the sole reason that Sukuna beat Gojo in their fight, as without this specific Shikigami he would have no way to get past Unlimited Void or Infinity, and it also gave him the ability that actually finished off Gojo. Mahoraga is also one of the few entities that actually put up a fight against 15-Finger Sukuna, doing more than special grade cursed spirits and high-end era sorcerers. But Mahoraga isn't the only thing that's broken about this technique. There's also the general brokenness of the shadows themselves, as the user is able to combine any Shikigami they want to create new, more powerful combinations at the risk of losing more than one at a time. This can result in some insanely powerful Shikigami such as a Jito, and that was just a combination of 4 Shikigami. With 10 Shikigami, there are over 10,000 possible combinations of Shikigami, giving the user literal endless possibilities of combinations. But it doesn't stop there, because a user can also change the purpose of a Shikigami based on their interpretation of the Shikigami. This is seen most obviously in Nue, who is kind of decent under Megumi's interpretation and completely broken under Sukuna's. There's also nothing saying that a sorcerer's interpretation of a Shikigami can't change over time, so it's possible that fighting a 10 Shadows user at 2 different points in their training could yield completely different fights. But it still doesn't stop there, as the Shadows themselves can also act as storage for cursed weapons and can even act as a liquid, which the user can move in and can inhibit the movements of other sorcerers. It really feels like the kind of technique where the user can do anything they want as long as they think they can do it. When we list out how much Megumi had going for him, it becomes a lot more obvious just how short he fell. It's almost as short as the Mavericks fell in the 2024 NBA Championship, winning only 1 game, but at least he still has the chance to reach these heights, unlike our next sorcerer, Nobara. Let me be clear, I do not think Nobara ever had the potential that Megumi did. She was never praised in the same way he was, nor did she ever exhibit the same understanding of Jujutsu as him. They were just in completely different leagues from the start. That being said, she could have been so much more as a character and also as a sorcerer. The resonance technique was one of the most busted techniques in the show, as it rebounded damage back onto the target regardless of where they were or how strong they were. And it also did damage to the soul, which cannot be healed using Jujutsu, making it much harder to heal in general. This means she had the potential to do major damage to Sukuna if she ever used the technique on one of his fingers, and if she ever got a hold of even just 1 strand of Gojo's hair, she could have been one of the few characters that could bypass Infinity. But instead, she got her face caressed by Mahito and was thrown into limbo for over 100 chapters. Like, seriously, can we just get a clear answer on her status at some point? Personally, I'm of the belief that she is 100% dead, as she has barely been mentioned since the Culling Games began, but I guess there's still a slight chance that she's not. Even if she was alive, I feel like the vast majority of situations she would have been useful in have passed at this point, such as using resonance on Sukuna's final finger, as it has been consumed by Rika. As such, I think it's still worth saying that she did not live up to her potential. There's also the fact that she was one of the main trio, and in general, she got much less screen time than Megumi and Yuji, even before her death. She played a much smaller role in both Shibuya and the Goodwill event compared to them, and even the one arc where she really shined, the Origins of Obedience, it still felt like she was overshadowed by Megumi and Yuji, even though I kind of think that was unintentional. When she was first introduced, she was one of my favorite characters, but now I just feel a sour taste in my mouth when I think about her. So disappointing. You know what else was disappointing? Kosimo's showing against Sukuna. Kosimo is the next character that did not live up to his potential. This lightning god turned out to be more like a shock from blanket static. As a former strongest sorcerer, many fans had high expectations for him. I mean, he kept up with Jackpot Hikari for multiple rounds and at times even appeared to be killing the unkillable. So pretty much everyone was hyped for the reveal of his technique and his fight for Sukuna, but in the end he just ended up getting waffled in 2 chapters. Yeah, this was a total letdown. And if I can be completely honest, even his curse technique wasn't that cool. Like, conceptually, being able to harness all of electricity is cool, but the execution just was not it. A very rare miss in the abilities department from Gege. I mean, the dude got turned into a Plants vs. Zombies pea shooter as the 3rd strongest sorcerer. This is the technique that's going to destroy your body? Really? It's not even as good as half the techniques the students have, and those won't kill them. It also did almost nothing to Sukuna, which is pretty embarrassing for someone of his supposed strength. To be honest, I think the main issue isn't with Kosimo himself, rather it lies in how he was presented. Saying someone is the strongest sorcerer of their era instantly insinuates equality to Gojo and Sukuna, which just was not the case for Kosimo. Had Kosimo mentioned that his era was weaker than the modern era or just a weaker one in general, this issue could have been at least mitigated, but it wasn't, so he was essentially set up to fail, and fail he did. Next, we have a character that literally could not live up to their full potential. Mai. Mai was doomed to fail from the start as she was born as a twin to Maki. Because they both existed, neither could fulfill their true potential by default as their strength was directly linked together and split between the two. This means Maki would never be able to grow if Mai didn't, and Mai didn't want to grow because she had no interest in being a sorcerer in the first place. She was essentially destined to die from the beginning in order to strengthen Maki, which is why I say she could never truly reach her full potential. Even if Maki had died in her place, she still would not have wanted anything to do with the world of Jujutsu. If anything, the death of her twin would only sour her attitude towards it more. As such, I doubt she could have ever lived up to what she could have been, which is disappointing because we see what a full-strength construction user is capable of in Yozuru, and it's pretty impressive. While not quite on the level of a special grade, Yozuru was definitely an extraordinarily strong first-grade sorcerer, with a super versatile technique that allowed her to kind of hold her own against 15-finger Sukuna for a few minutes. This is a pretty significant feat all things considered, and to think that Mai could have had the potential to reach this level is really interesting to think about. How would this series be different if she had lived instead of Maki? Would she have tried to honor her twin's dedication to Jujutsu, or would she have just left it all behind? I guess we'll never know. Hopefully she wouldn't follow Yozuru down the path of incest though. Next, we actually have 2 special grade sorcerers that I believe did not live up to their full potential. But first, please consider subscribing. Look, we can be honest, you enjoy the content. You wouldn't be this far in the video if you didn't, so you might as well subscribe so you can stay up to date with the videos and keep doing what you enjoy. Plus, seeing the number of subscribers go up is the only way for my self-esteem to increase, so please consider doing it, if not for yourself, for me. Anyway, the first special grade with potential left on the table is Geto. Geto is an unfortunate case of not reaching his full potential because it just didn't exist in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. See, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 was written a number of years before the main series was released, and as such, the power system of Jujutsu was a lot less fleshed out than the one we are familiar with. Things like domain expansions and black flashes simply did not exist at the time of the original prequel's release, and as such, Geto quite literally could not utilize them. This makes him appear much weaker than the rest of the special grades, as he has no domain expansion, and it kind of appears as if his knowledge on Jujutsu is shallow in general. For instance, when Kenjaku is talking about Maximum Uzumaki, he kind of implies that Geto was not using it correctly, as he never utilized the ability to extract techniques from strong spirits, when in reality that aspect of it probably just didn't exist when he was alive. Even if we do look at Geto at point blank in terms of strength in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, he still didn't reach his full potential, as his full potential would have been mastering Cursed Rika, so he didn't reach his maximum potential in his canon either. What's crazy is he isn't the only special grade to not reach their full potential, as Yuki also kind of fell flat, and I do mean kinda. Look, I love Yuki as a character. She was once again one of my favorites, and I was super excited for her fight with Kenjaku, only for her to lose in under 4 chapters. Yuki is a case of not living up to her potential as a character rather than not reaching her potential as a sorcerer. From a sorcerer point of view, she checks a lot of boxes. She had a domain expansion, fully understood her curse technique and knew how to best make use of it, and she knew reverse curse technique and even had a trump card in the form of her black hole, which is still one of the strongest displays of Jujutsu we've seen to this day. But from a character perspective, she could have been so much more, man. From her first introduction, one thing is made clear about Yuki. She wants to find a permanent end to cursed spirits, and she intends to do this by moving away from cursed energy as a whole. This is brought up time and time again on the rare occasions that we see Yuki, such as during her visit with Geto during hidden inventories, during her conversation with Kenjaku in Shibuya, and then when she's talking with Maki post-Shibuya, where she is generally interested in Maki and her heavenly restriction. But then, we don't hear a peep from her again until her fight with Kenjaku, and and at that point, it seems like this entire moving away from cursed energy plotline has just disappeared, and so she's just killed off after a short-ass fight, her entire character being boiled down to a book about souls when she barely even mentioned souls up to that point. I don't know, maybe my own personal biases for Yuki are clouding my judgment here, and she did meet her potential as a character, but it really feels like she was supposed to have a larger part in the story towards the end of it, but the direction of the story changed, and so her role became obsolete, and she had to be written out of the story at some point. Regardless of what exactly happened, she does leave a ton to be desired as a character, not unlike our next student, Inumaki. I genuinely feel bad for Inumaki. This dude has to be the most sidelined character in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. He went from one of the strongest, most respected students in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 to just not in the story. Like, he has not played an important role in the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen since the Goodwill event, and even that was pretty minimal. You could argue that his role in Shibuya was important to the story, but we only see him 2 times total. Literally every other character in Shibuya gets more screen time than him, including those like the Grasshopper Curse Spirit and Kusakabe, both of whom are pretty unimportant at the time. And since Shibuya, he has appeared in, what, 1 chapter? That 1 recap chapter, and that's it? The dude has been completely written out of this story after playing a pretty important role in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. To be honest, I don't know if it's fair to say he didn't reach his potential as a character, because it just kind of seems like he didn't have any to begin with in the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, his potential as a sorcerer is a different story. Cursed speech is an incredibly powerful technique, as we see it can affect even the strongest of sorcerers. The issue is, because Inumaki gets so sidelined as a character, his growth also pretty much stops at the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen. Almost every single character in the series catches up to him within the first season and then passes him or dies. Despite having a technique that is extremely versatile and powerful, he just doesn't amount to much because he just does so little. Really, the only students that I think do less than him are like Kirara, Arata, and maybe Panda, but arguments could definitely be made for those last 2. It's really unfortunate because he's a character that I think a lot of people find interesting, but Gege never intended for him to be interesting, he just was. And because there was no intention for Inumaki to have an important role in this story, he's left feeling underwhelming compared to what a lot of fans wanted him to be. We are almost done, but I have a couple more Culling Games characters that I want to talk about before we wrap up, starting with Higuruma. Higuruma is an interesting case. It's not like he was particularly weak or didn't showcase his talents with Jujutsu at all. In fact, he was one of the fastest learners in the series. But that's exactly why he has so much potential that he didn't meet. It is said a couple of chapters before his assumed death that he is a genius with Jujutsu that is only rivaled by Gojo himself. This is pretty high praise from the narrator, but I do believe it makes sense, as it is said in response to Higuruma pulling off domain amplification with no training on the subject at all. This is a technique that has only been learned by people close to Kenjaku, one of the most experienced sorcerers in history. So for Higuruma to learn it in the middle of battle with as little experience as he had is pretty impressive. He also mastered his own technique in a matter of days during the Culling Games, which is also really impressive in its own right, even if it is a technique that is closely related to his day job. And it's a great ability in general that allows him to level the playing field with pretty much any opponent he may face, no matter how much stronger they may be compared to him. If he had more time to train Jujutsu or a better teacher than just himself, he could have been a true force in the world of Jujutsu, which is why I say he never met his full potential, because his full potential was extremely high. But of course, this would never come to be, and he would even cite his own lack of experience as a reason that he was unable to hold his own against Sukuna. It's interesting to think about why his potential was cut short. It's not a character thing, as he had plenty of development, nor is it really a story issue either, as he fulfilled his purpose to the best of his abilities. I think it's more that he just didn't matter enough to reach his full potential, but it's different from people like Yuki. I'd love to hear from you why you think Higuruma could never reach his full potential, as I think it could make an interesting discussion in the comments down below. And finally, we have a sorcerer that never reached their full potential because they were never meant to reach their full potential. Takeba. Takeba has the potential to be the single most powerful being in Jujutsu Kaisen, bar none. Stronger than Gojo, stronger than Sukuna, a truly omnipotent being. This is, of course, thanks to his technique Comedian, which makes anything he finds funny happen. So if he found dark humor funny, he would be able to kill people or cause mass tragedy simply on a whim. I mean, theoretically, he could erase Jujutsu as a concept if he found the idea funny. There is truly no limits to this guy's abilities except himself, because Takeba does not have a dark sense of humor. His humor is much more grounded in nonsensicality and traditional humor. In fact, he finds the idea of him getting injured or dying extremely appalling, which kind of leads to him being immortal, as nothing can actually hurt him, which obviously makes him very strong in his own right. On top of this, Takeba also has zero idea of how his technique actually works, which is also important to him not becoming broken. This is why I say it's intentional that his character character never reaches his full power, because if he did, this series would cease to exist. Hey Takeba, is this video funny?